What's up, guys? It's Tyro Belanger of the One at the Line podcast, and yeah, it's been a while. There was no episode on Sunday due to the NBA protests for the shooting of Jacob Blake, and so the players, they sat out for a few days. They had a few meetings, and basically their goal was just to have the owners be more of a part instead of just putting names on their jerseys. They wanted to have them a bigger part in making some sort of difference in the world, and try to just help the situation that we have here in America right now. And I think it boiled down to the platform that these players have with post-game interviews, and just the people watching these games seeing all these messages on the back of their jerseys. I think that is the biggest thing right now for them, and I think that's why they continue to play. And Jaylen Brown, the vice president of the Players Association, in the meeting, he said something along the lines of, are you guys just going to go home and sit on your couch, or are you going to go out there and be on the front lines with everyone else protesting in the streets? And that's just a powerful thing to say, especially from such a young guy. I believe he's only 24 years old. And it's really sad what's going on in the world. And these NBA players have a chance to put their message out there. Millions of people watching, and that platform is just such a big opportunity for them. So now for this episode, we're going to get right to it. So since the NBA has continued, I'm going to start off with this Heat versus Bucks matchup in the second round. The Heat have taken a 1-0 lead, and as I'm recording this, game 2 is going to start pretty soon. Yeah, Miami came out. They were ready to play against Milwaukee. They weren't scared. Jimmy Butler had an amazing second half. Started off kind of slow, but really ramped it up, dropping 40. And Giannis just struggled. He had one field goal made in the fourth quarter. And from a two-time MVP, that's just not something that's acceptable. Chris Middleton still hasn't found his shot. And Budenholzer needs to figure out his rotations, honestly. Like, Pat Connaughton played more minutes than Wesley Matthews. Brook Lopez wasn't even playing the second half, even though he was on fire. I don't know. Like, Frank Mason got a minute of play, just a random minute. Like, it's just a minute. But still, I don't understand why he was in the game. It just makes no sense, really. So, this Milwaukee team has a lot to prove right now after that game 1. And the Heat their three ball wasn't even falling for them, and that's like their big thing that they have over the Bucks. They are a great 3-point shooting team, and the Bucks give up a lot of threes. This should be a nightmare matchup for them, and they lost that 3-point battle last night, and they still came out with the win because they have all these defenders that can wall up on Giannis and just force him to be a playmaker and force everyone else on his team on the perimeter to make their threes, and it just wasn't falling for them, really. And Giannis really struggled. Bam had the primary matchup on him, but they also switched Iggy and Jay Crowder and Jimmy Butler, and just a lot of different looks for Giannis, and it really threw him off. He only had like 18 points, I believe. And the Heat just came out and they were ready to play. And the shooters were ready. Jimmy Butler, like I said before, he's such an underrated part of this Miami team. He really came in and just took all these young guys and really elevated them, like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. Dragic has been playing very well in the playoffs. And Jimmy Butler is a big part of that. And we're going to see what happens in Game 2. The Bucks have a lot to prove, and Miami needs to keep the foot on the gas, because if they play like they did last night, they could honestly take this series. Now we're going to go on to the second round matchup. Boston versus Toronto. Celtics up 2-0. So, Game 1 and Game 2 were very similar in a sense. Just Toronto, the problems we were talking about with the Raptors before this series started and before the playoffs even started just showed it was just a light was shown on it, really. They don't have that guy that you can consistently tell, go out there and get a bucket. Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet they're great, but they're not someone that you're going to give the ball to in the fourth quarter with 20 seconds left in last possession, and you're going to say, go out there and create a shot, isolation, and get a playoff. And Pascal Siakam, he is an all-NBA talent. He's an all-star. He's their number one option on that team. He just simply hasn't been playing like it. And a lot of that is due to the defenders that Boston has. Jason Tatum has gotten some assignments on him. Jaylen Brown has been the primary defender on him. They've also thrown Marcus Smart on him, which I'll get to Marcus Smart after. But he's just really struggled to get it going, and his field goal percentage isn't really that good. Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry haven't been great. So if Toronto needs to win this series, they need to do something. Nick Nurse needs to figure out something, because as of right now, he's simply getting out-coached, and Celtics team just looks better. Now, moving on to Boston, I think the casual NBA fan really underestimates Boston. They look at the team that they have, and they think about last year and that they were just disappointing, and then just seeing all the injuries we've had this year as well. I think they underestimate Boston as a team, but they have shown that they're a true contender to make it out of the East. So what they've been doing is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have just broken out. Jason Tatum just had his career high in the playoffs of 34 last night. Kemba Walker he played good game 1. In game 2, he was really struggling from the field, but late in the game, he really stepped it up and hit a lot of big shots and even hit the dagger. But the main person that's been just bringing the potential of this team up is Marcus Smart. So after Gordon Hayward went down, the question was, can Marcus Smart step into the starting lineup and give Boston a little bit of that offense that they are losing with Gordon Hayward? And throughout both games, he's done just that. Last night, he hit 5 threes in a row in the fourth quarter. And the Celtics were down about, I think, 18 at one point in the third quarter. And Marcus just brought them back. He's playing excellent defense, and he was getting done offensively as well. And Boston is Marcus Smart is just such a big part of that team defensively, and offensively he has to consistently be a guy that they can go to and get a shot off, and he's been doing just that, especially last night. The 5 straight threes in the fourth quarter really just brought that energy to the Celtics. And even late in the game, Jaylen Brown had to sit for a little bit. He hurt his back, I believe. But another person in that series that has been very promising is Robert Williams. 2 back-to-back games, 20 points, and he's shooting 10 for 10 in this series right now. And he's kind of out of control defensively, and sometimes on offense he can throw some bad passes. But I think with a couple years of development, Robert Williams can really come in and he could be that Clint Capella type of guy that goes out there, gets rebounds, gets blocks, and can rim run with a good point guard, which is exactly what the Celtics need. And he's just been providing a lot of energy and athleticism when Tice isn't on the floor. And even last night, he was showing some flashes that he somewhat spaced the floor. He had a pull-up mid-range from pretty far back, and he's just been looking pretty promising. Now for Boston, they just came out both games, and they've had a lot of energy. So to win the series and to go up 3-0, they just have to keep playing with that energy, keep playing great defense, and keep getting it done on offense. Now, moving on to the next series, OKC versus Houston. Game 7 is tonight. Russell Westbrook in Game 6 had a very costly turnover and a very bad shot. And then Chris Paul has just been playing amazing, even with Shea playing very inconsistently, and Steven Adams just kind of struggling to stay on the floor. Chris Paul has just really taken over. Gallinari has also stepped up really big for them. And Lou Dort has been getting that James Harden assignment. And a lot of people coming into the series, I think, didn't really know who Lou Dort was. And now he's on that stage guarding one of the best offensive players in the NBA. He's doing a pretty damn good job, if I do say so. I'm going to admit I'm rooting for Chris Paul in this series, but I don't really care. It's not the Celtics, so I don't care who wins. I just want to see CP3 get that ring. But OKC has just been playing pretty well, especially Chris Paul and Danilo Gallinari. James Harden has been playing well. And Russell Westbrook, after coming back from that injury, he's played 2 games. And he hasn't really looked like Russell Westbrook both games. So we're going to see if Game 7, he's going to have to step up if they want to win this game. So we're going to need a big performance from him if Houston wants to get out of here. But if the Thunder come out and Chris Paul takes over, I think OKC is going to move on to the next round, honestly. Now we have the Los Angeles Lakers versus Portland Trail Blazers. I'm not sure if I talked about this last episode. I don't believe the series was over last episode, but Lakers won 4-1, and after Game 1, Dame and CJ and Nurkic, you could just tell their legs weren't with them anymore. Because you have to think about it like this. They played 9 playoff games before the playoffs even started. Those 8 seeding games, and especially that playing game with Memphis, they had to put in so much effort to win those games and to even get that spot in the playoffs. So now they're going against a much more experienced Lakers team who really didn't try all that much in the seeding games, and they weren't really a factor in them. So they're coming in here fresh against Portland, and after Game 1, Dame and CJ they couldn't really get it together anymore. Their shots weren't falling. But the Lakers looked pretty good the last few games of that series. Anthony Davis has really stepped up. He's starting to knock down shots. LeBron James has looked like LeBron James. So it was a good run for Portland. And the West is going to be very interesting next year because all the 8 teams that were in the playoffs this year, plus Memphis is going to get better if Jaren Jackson comes back. You have the Timberwolves, who are going to have a #1 overall pick with D'Lo and Cat for a full season. The Warriors are getting Curry and Clay back, and whoever or whatever they do with that #2 overall pick, and they have Wiggins again. So the West is just going to be stacked next year, and I could see easily some 48 to 50 win teams missing the playoffs. It's just going to be really interesting to see. But the Lakers moved on to round 2. Now we have the Clippers versus the Dallas Mavericks, and Luka he's making his case for top 5 in the league, honestly. And if you were a fan and you just started watching basketball during these playoffs and you've never seen anything else or heard anything about basketball, and someone came up to you and said, "Who's the best players in the league?" you would probably say Luka Doncic or Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell, which I'll get to them after. But Luka Doncic has just played. His potential is so high. His ceiling is so high, and even without Porzingis, he kept them in it. They won that first game off his buzzer beater game winner. But Los Angeles is honestly, they have too much depth, and they just overpowered them. And who knows what would have happened if Porzingis was there. But without Porzingis, the Mavericks really lacked that rim protection that they needed. Sorry, keep yawning. But anyways, they really lacked that rim protection that Kristaps brings, and that elite floor spacing, and that extra ball handler. But the Mavericks played good. But the Clippers, they just played better. They had more depth, more experience. But also, another thing that people have been talking about is Marcus Morris. And I can understand. I like guys that are like tough, like Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris, and like those enforcer type guys. But when you are just straight up doing blatant dirty plays, like stepping on Luka's injured ankle, and then even last night just pretty much smacking him across the face on a layup attempt, it's really just, it baffles me how someone in the NBA getting paid millions of dollars can go out there and intentionally try to hurt someone like that. It's really just unfortunate. And then also, Luka Doncic just got fined $15,000 on one of the plays. After a whistle was blown, he went to pass the ball to a referee, and the referee wasn't looking, so it ended up hitting his legs, and he got fined $15,000 for it. And Marcus Morris got fined $35,000 for hitting him on that layup attempt. I don't get the referees. I don't really understand the NBA at this point. A lot of people are saying it's soft, and at this point I would have to agree, which is players getting fined for passing a ball to a referee that wasn't paying attention. That's just utter ridiculousness, honestly. But yeah, the Clippers move on expectedly, and they're one step closer to getting to the finals, but they might have a tough road ahead of them, because that's the next series we're talking about. Utah versus Denver, and Denver comes back 3-1 to win the series. This was honestly one of the best first round series I have ever seen. It's up there with like Derrick Rose's rookie year against the Boston Celtics. That was a really good one. A lot of matchups haven't had this feel, but this one had that energy of just two up-and-coming star guards that score the ball at an elite level, just going bucket for bucket to keep their team in it. And if I'm a Utah fan, I'd be very disappointed, honestly, that they blew a 3-1 lead. But at the same time, Jamal Murray came out and he averaged like 40 points per game. And Donovan Mitchell just put the team on his back. And honestly, in that Game 7, which is pretty much like an old school basketball game, you know, he had a couple costly turnovers. He had 9 turnovers, I believe. He didn't really play well in Game 7. But he still put the ball in the basket, and it wasn't his fault that they lost that Game 7. Like, especially, you know, Mike Conley had that ball, and a lot of people are going to say, why did Mike Conley take that shot? He wasn't doing good. Donovan Mitchell was wide open in the other corner. But you have to think about it in this moment. He had, 5 seconds on the clock to get it past half court. And who knows, if he makes that pass, maybe the clock runs out and they don't even have time to get a shot off. So that was the best shot he could have taken, and it almost went in. It rimmed out. So it was an incredible series, and Denver has Jamal Murray. Their future is so bright with Jamal Murray emerging. Michael Porter Jr. and Bol Bol are just waiting for their opportunity. They have all these young vets, or not young vet, but veterans like Paul Millsap, and then they have Jeremy Grant. Gary Harris came back, and he is once again just playing great defense. Torrey Craig is a nice lengthy defender. Monte Morris has played very well. Their future is really bright, and I think they have a good chance against the Clippers. Maybe if they can catch them off guard. If Jokic can dominate in that series, I think they might have a chance against LA. we're going to have to just wait and see if Los Angeles can lock down Jokic or at least slow him down. And then you're going to have to focus on Jamal Murray a lot more. But, Donovan Mitchell after the game, he just collapsed to the floor and just really overcome with emotion. And I feel really bad for the guy. He put up historic numbers in this series. Just absolutely incredible. Average about 38 points per game, I believe. Just superstar numbers, and I don't know, his team just couldn't put it together to win that Game 7 matchup. But once again, this was an incredible series, and so far these playoffs have been very interesting. And have some surprising outcomes. But yeah, Denver comes back 3-1 to beat Utah. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode of the One at the Line podcast. I'll see you guys Sunday, and we'll have some more analysis. The Houston OKC matchup will be done, and the second round of whoever wins between that series will go against Los Angeles, and that series will be underway by that time as well. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe for more. Follow my Twitter for updates on the podcast. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.